Hello and welcome everyone to our first official episode of Tea Time with Unfold, a show where we discuss life and design live. My name is Deis Svejanzev and I am your host for the first episode, and today we're kicking it off with my co-worker and good friend, Phil Goodwin. Phil is a co-creative director of product here at Unfold, and he'll be designing dApp or decentralized app live with Figma just in front of our eyes. So, but before we begin, Phil, introduce yourself. Who are you? Where do you come from? How did you end up on our team? And yeah, share us.
Oh gosh. Okay. I'm gonna try to give this skinny, okay, because life stories can get a little drawn out. So started at UGA in school, in college. In and out of school, changed my major about 5 times. Started doing design because I was in a little band. And I was the only one that had a little bit of experience designing T-shirts and websites. So I kind of default took that role on. Really was just looking for a way to drop out of school so I could play music and tour. Ended up that I started designing a lot. I was doing a lot of stuff in design, started having people ask me what I charge for t-shirts and all that. I was like, charge is kind of a novel idea. How about, I don't know, $50? And so that was kind of like the very beginning at 18-year-old Phil. I'm 36 now. So I got going with that. Quit school at one point, took job at a t-shirt design place, designed a ton of t-shirts for bands and all this other kind of stuff. Ended up going back to school for another like year or so. And then I ended up leaving school again and freelancing for 9 years. And so in about 2015, kind of decided, hey, I'm going to like focus in on product design, user interface and experience design. I'm going to start turning down anything print related, just kind of focus in. And worked for a software consultancy for about a year and a half remote. And then that was kind of around the time COVID all hit. Ended up transitioning during that year of 2020 over to talking with the crew at Unfold, and started Unfold in July of 2020. And so that was kind of how I got synced up with this crew. So I've been loving it and having a great time.
Wow, that's awesome. It's a long journey, man.
It's
So glad that you're with us, and yeah, this is gonna be awesome. It's gonna be fun today because we're gonna be live designing and talking live as well, just like throwing questions at you. First of all, I think I'm gonna start this new tradition. I know we didn't talk about this, but we're drinking tea. This is tea time. So what tea are we drinking today?
Or today I'm sipping on the classic anyone can do it without a tea bag, and that is lemon juice.
Ooh.
It's fresh squeezed lemons and honey and hot water.
That's good.
Honey lemon tea, good for the throat. You know, it's good for this season. Highly recommended.
That's good. And I am drinking Wild Berries by Twinnings. It's my favorite go-to.
That sounds
comfort tea.
Delicious.
I love herbal teas. Yeah, this is the one that has the most flavor. So, but yours sounds as like swell as well, because like I love I love lemons. I love freshly juiced lemons. I love honey. That makes it really nice. So now that that's out of the way, let's talk about what we're gonna design today. Show us what you got.
Yeah. So are people seeing my screen yet, Dave? Are they seeing my browser?
I will. No, you know what? They should see your browser now.
So you can go ahead and pop that up while I talk about it. So yeah, so what we're going to be doing today, we're going to be designing a decentralized application. I intentionally picked one that's pretty basic, pretty simple, but I'm hoping to kind of give you guys a grasp on decentralized apps, kind of what are those things, and what's kind of necessary to like make one, you know, how do they work? What do they do? So this is basically a Web3 application, decentralized app, dApp. And so what we're going to be looking at today is an app called Drip by a little company called Decaf. Drip lets you dollar cost average. So anybody who's kind of into investing, whether it's stocks or, if you're into crypto, it's just this idea of putting in a little bit at a time over a long period of time. So you kind of average out. So you're not buying, like not spending all your money at one time and potentially like suffering a loss from, putting too much in at once. So this is kind of over time, you're able to kind of drip in your money, right, into a specific asset that you want. And so what this app has done, this dApp, is allowed you to do all this stuff on the blockchain, which is pretty cool. So it automates the whole process for you. You can kind of deposit a a set amount in there, and then it will automatically buy the asset for you. In this case, crypto. So automatically going to buy a specific crypto token for you. And then at the end of your kind of specified time, you can pull all that money out, right? And so you kind of were able to do that dollar cost average instead of just swapping it all at one time. So the way that dApps typically work is you have kind of this landing page, which is what you're seeing here. And they always kind of tell you what they do. And then there's like a launch app button. Most of these sites have a little launch app kind of button at the bottom. So in this case, you launch app, you get a new tab. So there's some things here that are going to be common for decentralized apps. One is this select wallet button up here in the corner. So every decentralized app, there is no, well, at least right now, the way it mostly works is there is no like login traditionally. So there's typically not going to be like an email, username, password sort of thing. It's just a select wallet. You just connect your wallet, and there's no, like, your name's not really tied to it. It's a wallet ID, right? So your wallet ID is your access into this application. And your wallet itself is holding like all of your stuff, right? It's holding all of your assets, your crypto. In this case, we're looking at an app that that works on Solana, which is the blockchain we're going to be playing with here. So just to show you how this works, you would select a wallet, and these are a couple Solana wallets, and they give you a lot of options here. We're going to use Phantom. It's probably the most commonly used one. So I'm going to connect a wallet. So I'm getting a pop-up that you can't see in a separate browser window that basically says, like, do you want to connect to this website with your wallet? Do you trust it? So I'm going to hit connect, and then you'll see that my wallet is now connected up here. I got my little wallet address, right? I can copy it, change it, disconnect it, whatever. But this now allows me to actually interact with this. It can read what's inside my wallet, and I can choose tokens. So what this is, we're just going to show you guys quickly here. So what we're going to be able to do is we're going to select one token. We're going to say how much we want to put in, right? So let's just say we want to do our Solana here, because I have some Sol in my wallet. Tells me I've got 12 Solana in here. So I'm going to want to drip, say, 10 Solana, right? And I want to drip that over to USDC. So that is, USDC is basically it's a coin pegged to $1 on the blockchain. I want to drip it every 12 hours, which this is kind of cool, right? You can choose how much frequency. So this is part of the automation process. I want to drip that every 10 hours or every 12 hours. And I want to do that until the end of the month, right? It's November. So I'm going to drip this till November 30th. And yeah, sure, 12 a.m. That's fine. So it tells me down here, I'm going to get 37 drips. I'm going to spend 0.27 Sol 37 times every 12 hours, right? So it's going to dollar cost average me into USDC. So in this case, it would be me trying to move my money out of Solana, the token of Solana, and into a token called USDC, right? So that is, at the simplest terms, that's where I'm not going to actually go through the deposit process because I don't want to do this. But just so you guys can kind of see how the dApp works, I wanted to show it to you before we actually get into redesigning this dApp. So
awesome.
That's that. I'm going to transition over into.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you prepped a lot of stuff for us to kind of look through. You have already designed the app, right? So we're just going to look at the finished work, and then we're going to kind of follow you along and try to recreate it and get behind your process, which is awesome.
Yeah, this is going to kind of be like a baking show. If any of you guys have watched a baking show, they kind of show you the ingredients that goes in. They're pre-measured. They make it really easy. Whenever you're baking, it never is this fast, right? You always have like all the prep work to do. I got all the prep work. It's done. So, and at the end, as we work on this, I'm going to have the already baked cake. I'm going to show you the already baked cake. Actually, I'm going to show it to you at the beginning and the end, so you know where we're going. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and can I go ahead and stop sharing this screen, Dave, and and transition over to Figma?
Go ahead.
Okay. All right, cool. Let's see, Figma window.
I got a lot of drinking to do since we're doing a drinking game now. All right.
I gotta take my pauses to sip my honey lemon tea, which I tried to get an unfold sticker here. I didn't have one in my office. I had to just opt for an Apple sticker. Because this thing is so dark, it kind of like, you don't even know it's there if I didn't have a sticker on it. It just blends into my shirt.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Everybody seeing my screen, Dave? Yes. Are we good now?
Yes, we're good now. Okay, let's go.
All right, cool. So first, I'm going to start off. I just want to set some visual precedent. So we're going to set a bit of a stylistic precedent here. What I'm looking at right now is what I just showed you guys live in the browser. This is what it looks like. Where we're going to take this stylistically is into this. So had to get our unfold logo in there. Which is this half circle. We call it the watermelon, this little guy. So I had to get him. I just went ahead and like redid the logo, nothing crazy. But we're kind of introducing a whole new color scheme into the app to kind of differentiate it. Honestly, nothing wrong with blue. I actually like blue for financial applications. It's a little safer. It feels safer to use because blue is very cool and calming. But for the sake of this, I wanted to have a little bit of fun. And so we, our kind of house color is FF0055 hex code, which is this really amazing watermelony pinkish red. So that is what I'm going to go with. And I built the color scheme off of a combination of that red and and a blue. So we're going to talk through that as well. But this is kind of the this is the visual direction we're going to go. So
all right,
anything else, Dave, before I jump into some more stuff?
No, honestly, I'm looking at this and I have like so many questions coming out to my, brain. Is like, okay, how did we go from, what we had before to this? Like, what's the process of like streamlining this UI that we're seeing here, which is like, basically a landing page. Talk about that. How did we get from there to here?
Yeah. So one thing, I don't actually like this whole launch app idea. I like the idea that there's a landing page to launch an app if you actually have like a long landing page to look at and you want to explain a little bit more. In the case of this drip app, it's just like this is the landing. That's it. What you see is everything on the page. And so I figured, hey, we could actually do this like immediately to the connect wallet button and not have to like launch into a new tab. We could just put you right into it. I also did this page after designing the app. So this was kind of more of a I redesigned the product, and then I went backwards and said, okay, how can I apply this new design to more of the marketing front-facing bit of this, while also bringing in the UX, which I thought was a little bit better to have Connect Wallet right here on the landing page instead of having to hit Launch App and then hit Connect Wallet again. Let's just get people to connect their wallet, and then this whole top area is just going to fade out, and we got the dApp ready to go. So that was kind of the thought process there.
All right. No, that sounds great. What's next?
Killer. So here's the current UI as we just took a look at it. What we're going to kind of look at is dripping 500 USDC into Bitcoin. Everyone's probably heard of Bitcoin here. If you haven't heard of Solana, I'm sure you've heard of Bitcoin. Been around for a while now. So this is kind of where we're starting, right? And this is where we're going to go. Okay. So this is the end result that we're going to end up with when we're done with what we're working on today, barring, time and how far can we get. This is my first time doing a live stream, designing on stream. So we will see. I have no idea. This could take 30 minutes. It could take the whole time. So this is where we're going to go. So very watermelony. And so this is, as I mentioned before, we have kind of our prepared spices, flours, mix-ins, right? It's already all measured out for us here. So that's what these design elements are, just to kind of shortcut a little bit of this process. So I've got our color palette here, our main color being that FF0055 vibrant pinkish red. And I had this other blue color that I just wanted to keep. I think I had the original decaf drip blue, but I made some subtle changes. And I actually built a neutral palette in the middle there, kind of based on that blue. So what I like to do, I didn't plan to show this part as much, but I basically build it. This is how I kind of like to build color palettes. Everyone does it a little bit different, but I'm just going to show this like little tips. This has really helped me. Someone showed this to me a long time ago. If you have your kind of base color that you want to use, you can duplicate this in Figma and change the fill to like a straight all black, all zeros, all black. You can tone down the opacity of this. And then there's this color happening right here on this overlap that we want to pay attention to. And that is the color that I'm going to kind of pull out as my black for the UI, right? So I'm not using a solid black. I might use an 80% solid black over blue. And then I've got this sweet bluish black, but it feels like
nice.
Black, right?
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a cheat way to start building a neutral palette off of a brand color. You could also do this with that pink. So if I wanted to have a little bit more warmth in my color palette, I could do this same idea and actually do it just from that unfold pink color. And then I'm going to get a black that's got a little bit more pink, a little bit more red in it. So you can kind of see those. But for the sake of this app, I didn't want all of our neutral colors to have that red tint. I wanted that blue. So anyway, didn't plan on necessarily going into that in too much detail, but that's our color palette we're going to start with. I spent a few minutes redesigning the drip logo just because I had to get the Unfold half circle watermelon in there. So there's that. The typography we're going to work with, I wanted to get a free font in here. So I picked a Google font called Work Sans. Anybody can go snag this on Google Fonts. And we're only going to use a few text styles. A key to designing good UIs. Learned some tips on this from a guy named MDS. I like to,
which is a good segue. Which is a good segue because I wanted to ask you, like, man, your journey has been like insane to hear about, just like from today's morning. The thing that like, you know, kind of flashed to me, I guess, is how you're connected with a lot of like really influential people, and just like people in general. Like every single time we have somebody's like, oh, do we have somebody to think about for like this position or that position? You always have somebody to suggest, and they're always like these amazing people. I know you work at the co-working space with MDS, and that's how you kind of met him. But like, how do you go from just being you and then being connected to all these people in the space and just like connecting with people? I think a lot of people out there watching and thinking about like, how do I get into, you know, design world, connect with people? And I guess like you have some sort of secret sauce, so spill it.
No, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, I mean, I freelanced for like 9 years, right? And there was no secret sauce to that. That was just kind of grinding, right? It's just like, I'm just doing work. I'm working at, I was living with 7 guys at the time for a big chunk of that.
Okay.
So I lived with, for a chunk, I lived with about 6-7 dudes, and I shared my office with like 3 or 4 other guys, which was basically a bedroom in our house. And then after I got married, I had an extra room in our house I worked in. And then I finally transitioned to a co-working space. So I was working by myself in a room, some room with some other guys, but none of those guys were designers, right? They were all in school and they were just my buds. To like working literally in a room by myself, to going to this co-working space in my hometown. And well, actually going into that co-working space is what got me connected with people. So I also noticed there was another guy who I was downloading a bunch of his fonts. This guy named Maddox Schuler, who owns a font foundry called Fort Foundry. And I had been downloading and paying for this guy's fonts and saw that he lived in my town. And I was like, wait, what? And so I sent him a message. We had lunch together one day, and then he told me about this co-working space that he was at. So I went there. That's how I met MDS. MDS had started this co-working space. So really, it's just kind of like, just step out and just talk to people, connect with people. I mean, for me, it was just an email to a guy whose fonts that I liked. That was kind of what sparked, you know, the rest of this stuff. And a lot of this conversation is happening on Twitter now. Yeah. A lot of this conversation happens on Twitter now. And Twitter's been around for a while, but 2015, 2013, 2014, Twitter wasn't as big of a thing in the design community that I can remember. So it was really just more like email, classical email, and meeting up in person, IRL, as the kids say these days. Oh yeah. And that was it, man. That was it.
That's awesome. No, that's such a great story, and something I learned today as well. Like just like going out there in co-working spaces, like there's quite a few of them around here. There's probably a lot of cool people hanging out in there, so might as well meet them. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, everybody needs people around, you know.
That's true.
And having that co-working thing, which is one of the things I love about Unfold, right? We're remote, but every bit of our process is so collaborative. We're like feeding off each other all the time, which when I was working freelance and doing solo stuff, I never got that, right? I didn't even get a taste of that until I moved into a co-working space where I could get feedback from other designers in the space with me.
That's true.
So collaboration.
Even in today's age, we're all almost always remote. So like having that connection with other people is just like incredible. Coming from, you know, office to remote, and kind of having any kind of connection with other people, even like on our remote, you know, getaways that we have for Unfold team retreats, like just having that kind of energy around you is exciting. So, well, all right. I love that I'm throwing curveballs at you and you're just like picking them up.
I love the curveballs. I told Dave before, I love the interruptions. Like, just interrupt me all you want. I love it. It's really fun.
Don't forget to drink your tea, and you know, we can continue our
Here we go.
walkthrough.
Well, cool. I'll jump back in. So I'm only doing a few textiles here. We're going to use this font called Work Sans. We're going to use, basically, we have a form label style. We're going to have a button text style. And then I'm using 3 sizes of body copy. So for various things. And we'll show that in a minute, what those things are for. But I've got all this pre-set up and ready to go. I've got my ingredients ready. Also going to be using some elements from a Web3 UI kit that we actually released last week. I believe it was. And it's now, you can sign up with our, I think we got a link in the description below the video, Dave, if that's correct, where you can actually sign up and we'll send you a copy of it. This is only a little piece. We've got a bunch of screens and things we've put together in there. It's just a Web3 kit for actually building out a bigger UI with some of those different elements of wallets and approving transactions and all that kind of stuff, which we're not going to get into too much in this stream. And then I've also got a couple icons and token logos that we're going to use. Got me a little drop down carrot, a little calendar icon, a little clear deal, and then USDC and Bitcoin's token logos. Yeah, that's what we're going to use. Those are our ingredients. Questions about our ingredients, Dave? Are we good?
I think we're good. I have not seen anybody say anything in chat about the ingredients, but looks awesome. Let's get started.
Cool. Well, we're going to nerd out for just a second and look at what we're going to be designing. We're going to break it down. Okay. So this is the UI structure as it exists at Drip right now. So we've got kind of our header bar at the top, which is made up of, we got our logo, right? We already have our design piece. We're going to sub in for that. We got some navigation stuff. So we're going to put that together. Not going to be too complicated. And we've got our authentication. So this is kind of like this, the select wallet is the Web3 version of login, right? And then we have our content block down here, which is going to be full of our actual form fields, right? Our inputs and our selects. That's got our form labels, and then we've got our actual forms themselves. And then we've got our button at the bottom. So it's going to be a pretty simple UI structure, but we're going to have some fun in kind of walking through utilizing. I mean, we're in Figma, so if I haven't talked about that yet, we are in Figma at Unfold. We do everything in Figma. Figma's amazing. Figma, you should sponsor this. So shameless plug. So we're going to get into this. I'm going to talk about auto layout. We're going to chat about some of those things. I'm a little bit obsessed with auto layout, which is a feature that Figma offers that makes design way faster, especially in product, because you're reusing a lot of components and you need components to be dynamic. You need them to resize, all the things. So that is our UI structure that we're going to be working off of. And so now we move to our blank canvas, which is exciting. I like to design on a 8-pixel grid, but sometimes I use 4 pixels because 8 pixels just isn't everything. 4 pixels is your four with sub 8 sub 4 is everything. Okay, so I'm gonna use an 8-pixel grid, and that just means that I'm gonna try and keep everything in multiples of 8, whether that's vertical spacing, horizontal spacing, padding, text sizes. All those things are going to operate in multiples of 8s or 4. Okay, so that's kind of just a little rule for myself to kind of help me as I kind of go along. And then I went ahead and set up kind of where I want our bounding boxes to be. So for our actual canvas size, typically if I'm designing for a web browser, I'm going to use I like to use the MacBook kind of resolution, 1440 by about 900. For this dApp, since it doesn't really have a lot of parts, it doesn't really have a whole lot of components. So decided I'm just going to do this at more of like an iPad size. So this is at 1194 by 834, which I think is like an iPod. It's it's not the iPod Pro, or not the iPad Pro. Sorry, did I say iPod? iPad. iPad size. And this is kind of like the smaller iPad size, I believe. So we're going to give ourselves 48 pixels of margin on the outside and that's really only going to see that reflected in our header bar. And then in the center where we're actually going to have all of our content, 552. It's a little bit arbitrary, to be honest with you. But I just want it to kind of be able to float there in the middle. And this is just kind of for fun. So this isn't as much around how we should determine sizes of the canvas and margins as much as it is about some of these design elements we're going to be focusing on. So that is our base canvas that we're going to work with. And we'll get started. I've got our little Drip dApp redesign to-do list over here, all themed with our tea time stuff.
Ooh,
thank you to the brand team. The brand team has been killing it for tea time and for a lot of our Unfold internal initiatives. So these are our tasks. We're going to do our header bar. We're going to design our form fields, which is all that content area, and then we're going to do a button. Okay, so not a whole lot to this, but we can have a little fun here. So our header bar, we're going to start. I'm going to get into it. If there are any other questions before we start actually pulling elements from our
let's get started. I'm excited.
Our bricks. Okay. Sweet. Also something to note probably in here is I did, before I'm getting started over here on the left, you'll see I've got all my text styles already in here, which is going to make this a lot faster. I created color styles for everything. There is I'm going to do a plug for a plugin which is called Styler, I believe. Styler is amazing. Lets you generate styles on the fly in Figma just by naming like certain layers. So if I name my color layers watermelon and I hit generate style, it's going to name the color style over here watermelon. Anyway, just a plug for Styler. It's a great plugin.
How often do you use that?
Anytime I start a design system. So pretty much any new project, I'm going to use Styler to quickly like do my textiles and my colors. So literally if I name this body slash or body dash large regular and I apply that textile thing, it creates me a textile automatically in here. And I don't have to do this all like manually and type it all in for every single textile. So Styler is a must have. Gotta get it. Go get it. Do it. Okay. You can get it right here. I think they added this little feature up here. You can kind of click right here, hit plugins, and you can just search Styler. And it's it is there. Highly recommended. Okay. All right, let's design a header bar, which, all right, looking again at our UI structure, our pieces we're going to need our logo. So we got a new logo over here. So I'm going to copy this bad boy, Command C on a Mac. So many of these hotkeys are muscle memory. I can't even remember exactly what they are. So I'm going to try and talk out what I'm doing as I go. And Dave, you just slow me down if I need to slow down.
Sounds good.
So we've got our logo here. We're also going to need our authentication button. And so if you remember from our desired way where we're going, we're going to do it already authenticated. So we're not going to go through the whole connect wallet flow. We're going to do it as if it's already connected for ours. So that's what I've got down here. These are from that UI3 or that Web3 UI kit. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the one where the wallet's already authenticated. Copy that bad boy in here. And then I'm going to need some navigation. So deposit and positions. Those are our two tabs for this thing. So we're going to actually just make those from scratch. So let's size our drip logo to be a little bit more, this is kind of large. So let's take it down to about 48 pixels. Again, I said we're going to keep everything in the generally in the 8 pixel arena here. So I got my drip logo, 48 pixels tall. I'm going to anchor this guy way over here. So this is where I start some auto layout. Okay. So I'm going to select both of these. And I'm going to hit Shift A. Shift A is your hotkey to create an auto layout frame. And then in here, you have like kind of your different ways you can kind of structure your auto layout, how you want the text to kind of, or the elements inside it to function. Right now, it's set to like be anchored to the left. That's what this little guy is, left alignment. And then they're going to be 762 pixels apart. So I don't want that, but this allows me to, I can change that distance there. I actually want this to just like float everything left and right. So I want my logo on the left and I want my little authenticator guy on the right. And so in this case, I want my spacing mode, I want space between. So it's going to automatically determine the center space and just space this thing perfectly for me. You can see I got it 48 and 48. And then if I choose to resize this guy, it's just going to automatically redo that space for me, which is nice, right? That's kind of part of your, that's nice. So now the actual navigation items, they need to be centered on the page, and they always need to be centered on the page. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by creating these pieces. So I've got that deposit button. Again, I got textiles over here already. So I'm going to use the large, regular medium. So we're going to create a deposit button. So again, I'm going to do auto layout again here. I'm going to hit Shift A, and I'm going to create an auto layout out of this. So like, it's kind of like my hit area just got bigger here, right? And then I'm going to add a stroke to the bottom. I'm going to kind of do the selected state. So we're going to make our stroke our watermelon color. Right now it's got watch out. Okay. Right now it's got border all around it. I only want the border at the bottom. So I'm going to edit this little guy. This is a newer feature in Figma. I'm going to put the active little line there only at the bottom, and I'm going to pump that bad boy up to 2 pixels. So now I've got my deposit button tab, right?
Nice.
And if you remember, our header bar so far is 48 pixels. So this is 50 actually, but our logo is 48. I'm breaking the rules a little bit here. Okay. So maybe I'll make it 48 just to be consistent with myself. 48 for that. This little guy. So I want him to be 48 as well. You can see his height right now is 40. So I'm going to up the spacing. This right here is going to change the spacing and padding on the top and bottom of this auto layout frame. I'm going to up that to 12. And so that's going to give me a 12 pixels of padding on the top and bottom. So this is my active this is my little active frame here, active tab. And then I'm going to have me a inactive tab, which is not going to have my little stroke at the bottom, and it's called positions. All right. And then just to downplay it a little bit more, we're going to make it like not white. We're going to kind of set it back a little bit, maybe at 20, like a 20% black base or 20% white. That's essentially what it is here. And again, select both of these, auto layout again. Doing 2. I'm auto layout fiend. Judge me if you want. It'll make your life easier once you do it. So Shift A, we're going to put it auto layout together again. I'm going to change the spacing in between these pieces, probably to about 8. And there we go. So now I've got my navigation. And I'm just going to drag that navigation into this auto layout frame that we have. So it automatically places that guy right in the middle, right? Which is kind of cool because I can resize this. It's automatically going to keep it in the center. The downside, though, is that it's not actually truly centered on the page. Truly centered on the page would be like this, right? Because it's actually spacing everything equally between these elements here.
Right.
And I don't really want to do that. I want my deposit and positions always to be dead center on the page. I want it to be here. So in order to do that, Figma put this nice little thing called absolute position in one of the more recent UI updates.
I haven't used that
so
yet.
You can actually, oh dude, so nice. So you click that little guy, and then I want to make sure this thing stays centered, right? Top. I want it to stay centered vertically and horizontally, and then I'm just going to center it on the canvas, and boom. Now,
okay, will that keep it centered though, while you resize it?
Keep it
sweet.
Centered.
Okay, that's
keep it centered. Yeah,
that's mine right there.
So I'm noticing I want these buttons to be a little bit bigger, so I'm going to kind of up the spacing here, maybe 24 padding on left and right of each one of those. And now I've got my header bar. Header bar is feeling good. I'm feeling good about this. You feeling good about this, Dave?
I feel so good.
Okay.
And for everyone who's watching this, I feel like you're going so fast, it's like a little bit blurry even on the streams, like, you know.
Oh really?
Just okay. Yeah, so if you just slow down a little bit and like let people follow you along and whatnot, I think that'll be great. But like, you're doing great, man. Like that absolute positioning with auto layout is so good. Like I didn't even realize that Figma has this feature. Figma has been putting out these features pretty much every few months that have been like just killing it.
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah,
it's pretty awesome. So we have we just knocked out our header bar. So we've got this is just a plug for some of Figma's like component stuff that they allow you to set up. This is like so killer. I can have like it's amazing, right? And this I've set up like what color I want my little to-do list item to be. What status is it? We were in progress. Now we're complete, right? I can add subtext, remove subtext. I mean, Figma, dude, they've just thought of it all. Okay. So we're done with our header bar. All right. Good to go. Now we're going to go on to our form fields, which are made up of those form labels. And then we've got the actual content inside the fields. So these are going to be a little complex because there's multiple things happening inside these form fields. So I'm going to try and take it a little slower and we'll go through it. So if you guys remember where we were, so they have the first one we're going to hit is this drip form field. I wanted to add, I always like where I can to add a little bit of subtext for context, for different, especially in forms and things. Even if it's kind of obvious, you just want a dummy proof UIs if you can, right? And it gives a better UX anyway. And it gives you some fun stuff to play with visually too. So in the case of this one, we have our, the first field's called is drip, right? And the elements that make that up are going to be like, what are we dripping, right? Which is our token, in this case, USDC. How much of that token are we dripping? And then how much do I have? So those are what's going to make up this kind of first input. So where we're going to go is we want to be able to, part of what I want to add in here is some descriptors. So we're going to drip, and then I want to tell them what drip means, right? The token you want to swap, right? We're going to add in our token, how much we have. And I've restructured it a little bit, but this is what we're gonna try and put together here. So, all right. What we're gonna start with is we're gonna need to build form labels, because these form labels are gonna be applied on every one of our form fields. So we can go ahead and create a form label and make a component out of it. So cool thing. First one is just gonna be called drip. All right. Remember, we already have our form label created. So it's going to be called drip. And then I want to put some of that little descriptor text out to the side. So I'm going to use my tiny regular as my text. And I'm just going to say the token what did I say? I don't even remember. The token you want to swap into. That might not even be proper English. Get it? Okay. So we got these little guys here. I want to downplay this color-wise a little bit. White is a little stark, so I want this to kind of be downplayed a little bit. Maybe that black 40 color that we have, and then we've got our subtext. Another cool thing about Figma. All right, I'm gonna auto layout this thing again. Told you I was an auto layout fiend. Okay. Shift A.
Shift A. All right.
Shift A again. All right. So Figma has this cool feature they launched called text baseline alignment. So this has always been a little bit of a hassle when you have auto layout because it'll automatically either anchor it to the bottom, to the middle, to the top. But with text, it gets a little complex. Sometimes you just want to anchor the baseline of the copy itself. Well, this new little option lets you do that. So I can hit the check there, and it'll automatically just, if you see what it did right there, it went from kind of like being off a little bit to like anchor that bad boy right on the line. So that is my, so this is kind of my form label here. And again, our spacing got to be eight pixel spacing here. So I'm going to go 8 multiples of 8 and 4. Okay. So I've got my drip. All right. So that's where that's our form label. So I can go ahead and create a component out of that. There's this button right up here at the top, these little 4 diamonds, create component, or a hotkey, which I highly recommend you learn hotkeys. It's going to make your life so much better and make your workflow so much faster. And this one is Command Option K on a Mac. If you're on a PC, I don't know what to tell you. It's Command Option K.
It's Command, it's Control, so same thing.
There you go. Control Option K. So that's going to make our component. So see, it just kind of gave us that little 4 diamonds here. We're just going to call this form label. You know, label your layers when you can. I'm not the best at it. Just do it when you can do it.
Yeah. Okay. Are you like a person who like uses both hands for shortcuts or tries to use only one hand?
Just one. I typically my left hand stays on the keyboard and my right hand stays on the mouse. It's just
right.
I'm always
like for Command Option K. Like how do you go about that?
Oh, I hit my thumb. My thumb does the command and the option together. Oh, you're right, dude. I do take it's muscle memory, but I take my hand off the mouse and I hit the K.
I can't do that, man. I can't do that. It has to be left hand.
The whole thing, Command Option K. Yeah, no, I guess I didn't even think about it. I don't even think about the stuff. I've been doing it. It's just muscle memory. All right. So we got our form field. Okay, now we gotta figure out what's gonna be in this thing. Okay, so they put their max amount that you have to drip on the outside. I wasn't like a big fan of that. I wanted that max amount to be in the form because I want it to be in context with the amount that I'm actually inputting. So I wanted it to be in the form with that 500 here, where that input amount. And I wanted the USDC and the 500. I want that stuff to be in one form because I wanted to pull all these together in a single element instead of having them in basically 3 different elements. Right now they've got kind of the drop down for USDC. They have the form field for 500, and then they have this button, basically text button for your Mac. So you can just click that and it'll max out what you have. I wanted to put all that in together, even if it still is technically 3 different things happening. Visually, it's all kind of grouped together in a single form field. So we're going to do that. And this form field's made up of a few elements. So we're basically going to think about this in 3 parts. So there's the USDC, there's the token select part, there's the entry, the number entry, and then there's this text button. So we're going to create each one of those pieces. So I've got, like we had before, I'm going to go ahead and pull these little token logos over here. I'm going to pull all these icons and logos. We're going to need them all. Got these pieces here. All right. We're going to start with our USDC. I'm going to pull this bad boy up here. And then I'm going to write USDC because that's the token we're going to use. And I have a style. And for these, I'm kind of doing like bubbly big forms here on purpose because this UI doesn't have too many elements. I really want to make these fields, I want to make them a little bit bigger, make them a little bit more in your face. I don't want them to be tiny because there's not much stuff on this screen. So I'm going to use the large medium as kind of our size for our inputs. And let's see, I want to make sure it's the size that I'm using here for our circle, 44. So multiple of 4 here instead of 8, but you know. All right, so we're going to auto lay out this bad boy together, just like we do everything, okay, because these go together. So Shift A on that guy. Our spacing here is 14. No bueno. Let's go 16. Keep it easy. Keep it easy. All right, this is a drop down because this USDC actually got here because someone had to select a token, right, from a list. So we're going to bring in this little caret, this little drop down caret. And again, I'm going to drop down caret and select my USDC. I can shift to select 2 at once. or I can just kind of highlight all of it. And then I'm going to Shift A. I'm going to auto layout it again. Okay. So now I have, I've got my spacing in here. So this is, it auto assigned me some spacing of 47. Yeah, you know, I'll leave it for now. But we really, well, I'm not going to leave it. You know, I'm not going to leave it, Dave, because if this thing has to grow, then I want this little carrot to move with it. So I'm going to change it to what we talked about before, which was space between, right? So I want it to automatically detect the space between, keep that arrow over there to the right. Okay. The other part of this form field, 2 more parts. The other part, next part is the text entry or the number entry, which we're going to say is 500. So it's already in large medium. Okay. And then our last part is our max, our little text, our selector for how much we want to actually put in if we want to go to our max amount, which we want to downplay that a bunch. So I'm going to go with our tiny style. Let's go tiny max. Let's say I got $1,000 in there. Hey, I got 1,000 USDC. Okay. I'm rolling in it here. All right. So we're going to make that medium size, and I'm going to auto layout again. So I'm going to select those two.
Auto layout, all the things, man.
Are you shocked? I don't know. So I'm putting that in. So these two are going to kind of live together, right? I want the 500 and the max. Those are associated with each other. I don't feel like this 1,000 the 1,000 doesn't quite look clickable enough yet. So I want to make a few adjustments there. So I think what I want to do is give it an underline. So I'm just gonna draw me. There's a couple ways to do this. You can draw yourself an underline. You can make 1,000 an auto layout frame and apply a stroke to the bottom of it. Also an option. You know what? I might try that. So select my 1,000, Shift A. It's gonna automatically give me like this 8 pixel all around padding. I don't want any of that, right? I'm just gonna make it 0.
All right.
Gonna make it 0. Stroke. We've talked about the stroke. Okay, just make it white for now. Put it at the bottom. Look, we have an underline.
Can you do like padding with the underline?
You can. So I can change this to
neat.
Whatever size I want. So this is like my under padding.
What I could do is just go ahead and far from like Photoshop days where you have to like draw like a rectangle, you know, like for every single underline. Like now we can just like select 8 pixels, padding.
Boom, done.
Yeah.
And then I want to make the line, like I want to downplay the line a little bit because it's also a little bit loud. So now I've got max 1,000, and now it kind of looks like a clickable text link there. And I want to take a look up here. So I think what I had in our where we're going is actually a little bit better. I downplay the max text as well. Put it down to about 40. Like my underline. What did I do my underline at 40? You know, that'll do. So I'm going to downplay this guy a little bit more. And there we go. We got a nice little, looks clickable. It's there. I'm going to auto layout these two together because these two belong together. Shift A. And again, space between. Bada bing, bada boom. Because I want these things to move together. Right? Want that stuff anchored to the right. And these all need to be in a singular pill-shaped form. So now I'm going to select both of these. Auto layout again. All right. And so this is where it can start to get a little bit complex and complicated because we got a lot of stuff going on. And I got auto layout frame over here, which this will drive anybody insane to come into your file and go through all your auto layout layers. I know our people at Unfold have complained about that for me a lot, which I understand because it's a lot going on. But, you know, as people get more accustomed to auto layout, it does make everyone's life easier.
Right.
So here's our form field. I got to give some padding and some background, and then I'm going to round this up to make this thing fit inside a single pill form field. So let's just going to start. Sometimes I just start with an arbitrary multiple of 8. So I'm going to start with 16. I'm going to give this thing, just give it 1,000 pixel border radius. So it's going to be it's going to be like a pill. And then I'm going to give it a fill. Let's give it a fill of maybe 92, black 92. So now we've got our little form field. It's coming together. But it's not, it's outside of our bounds here because I wanted this thing to be 552 and right now it's 559. So let's go ahead and I'm just gonna eke it in where I want it to be. And then I got to fix all this spacing in here. So these two guys, this is okay. This is where it starts getting complicated because it kind of happens in my brain. So I know that I want these guys to live inside. They need to be inside that 16 pixel padding. So instead of them being a fixed width, I want those widths to be able to adjust based on the size of the form. So I'm going to change those to fill container, and that's gonna give them like a nice little float. So now they kind of maintain their sizes, and they're also they maintain their where they're located inside the form, no matter how wide it is. But I need a little visual separator here as well. Noticing as I'm doing this, I'm like, I gotta have some separation between USDC and 500. I'm just gonna put a little horizontal line in here, and we're gonna make that, I don't know, black 80. Let's do it. It's black 60. So black 60. I don't know if Dave's watching the chat. He's smiling at me, man. I don't know what people are saying, but
no. People are loving your auto layout bits of wisdom, dude.
Oh my gosh! All right.
And just FYI, we have 16 minutes left. So like, let's feel out where we want to like maybe stop in there, and let's just like go through the final design.
All right, cool. So what we need to do here, as you can see right now, I got 84. This is like the padding that it automatically assigned. I want that to be more like 24, maybe 32, and that's really just changing the size in between these, the space in between these elements right here. So what we're changing is this space right in here. And so I want that to be, I guess 32 looks pretty good. This guy, I want him to be, I'm going to fill container, and that's basically going to make him just as tall until we get to that padding at the top, which is 16 pixels. I still think it's a little bit too bright, but now I've got a nice working form here. There's some stuff here that feels a little wonky visually, like that max 1000 feels like it's a little too close to that right side. So even though it's technically 16 pixels around, mathematically correct, what you'll run into a lot of times in UI is that it's not optically correct, right? It looks super weighted, like too close to that right side. And so in that case, I would change the padding on that far right one, maybe to like 32, 24.
Yeah, that looks so much better.
And now it's feeling, much more better. So now we're going to put this form field together, because now we've got our standard ready to go. Okay. So we have our label and our form field. I'm going to select both those together. Auto layout. All right. And then we're going to make our spacing in between those, say 8 pixels. Okay. Another thing that kind of looks funky now, though, is that this drip, again, looks too far to the left. Like it doesn't feel like it's lining up super well with our form field, because we have this super rounded edge. So we're going to need to add some padding to that left side. So it doesn't look like too far, at least visually, optically, it looks too far left, even though mathematically it's lined up perfectly. Right. So to make that happen, we're just going to add some padding to this auto. Remember, this is auto layout as well. So I can just add, maybe add 16 pixels of padding, because we got 16 pixels of padding inside this field. And that feels pretty nice. For me, that feels good. And we're lined up with this kind of inside line instead of the outside of the form field. So then we got our fields, boom, boom, done, good to go. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play speed up here with the baking. And I'm going to go ahead and pull in some of these pieces, and we'll design the last piece. So now we got a form field. You basically are going to take that form field we did. You're going to kind of do the same sort of stuff, but you're going to do it 2 more times. And you're going to kind of have to play around and shuffle with carrots and optical alignments, all that kind of stuff, to get it feeling right on, until you have all your form fields beautifully aligned how you want.
That's beautiful, man.
I think we did 1,000 here.
There you go.
So there you go. And now we want to be able to throw in basically our bottom, which is our button, and our little. So we have some subtext, which I think is really nice. Drip does a really good job of this, of actually telling you how many drips you're going to have on chain, of how much amount, and how often you're going to have them, which I thought that was a really nice touch. So we're going to do that here. I did the math when I was designing this thing for how many drips you were going to have in the amount of time, every certain number of hours, all that kind of stuff. So I'm just going to copy that from over here, because I don't remember what that math is. But what we're doing here is 65 drips of 3.85 USDC into Bitcoin every 12 hours. Pretty sweet. And then we need a deposit button. So we're going to write out deposit. We created a button text style. We're going to auto layout this beast. Shift A, because auto layout's the bomb. And we're going to apply a fill of watermelon. We're going to put 1,000 pixel border radius to make this thing very pill shaped. And I don't know, let's give it like a nice little generous padding, right? This is 24 pixels all around. I want my text to stay centered. Right now, if I do this, my text is left aligned. That's because my auto layout appears upper left. I want that to be centered all the time. So I'm going to go right in here, center that beast, and let's line it up. All right.
Nice.
Deposit. Now, when I zoom back, I'm like, my deposit button feels a little bit big. Okay. It's probably the same size.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 76 is the size of our form fields. 76 is the size of my button. Again, mathematically, I'm lining all up, but optically, it's heavy. It's looking a little too heavy. So I'm going to maybe take down this top and bottom padding on this button down to maybe 16 instead of 24. And that feels better to me. It's still loud. I still want it to be loud. It's our call to action, but I don't want it to be so visually heavy that it feels out of place. So now that we have our deposit button, we've got our little subtext here, which I'm also going to auto layout to our deposit button because those things kind of belong together, right? I'm going to give it maybe, 16 pixels padding in between the two of those, or spacing. And then I'm going to line it back up with this text, or this our content here, and select both of those and auto layout again. Shift A again. And I'm just going to make 32. Now this is what we're changing, is the space between the content and the button and that text. And I want it to be, let's see. 32 feels almost too close. 40, this is like one of those real subtle changes. This is something you got to just kind of play with. I like 40. And then bada bing, bada boom. And then you can add in some so this is some of the stuff I've learned to Unfold from a few of the Unfold guys, to add a little bit of extra visual pop. So this background, you guys, is our black 100. So I want to add a little dimension to the background and to the foreground a little bit. So I'm going to add some little blurs. And this is like a free tip that I learned from our guys. Make a big circle, triple black, add some effects, layer blur that beat. I'm just going to go 500, right? Ooh. It's just going to be a huge dark mass. And I'm going to cut it and paste it inside our frame. I just want to send it to the back. This is super subtle because it's just black, right? And our background's already really close to black. But I'm just adding this little touch of dark in the upper corner. And then I want to kind of add some light in the lower right corner. So this is all just adding to some dimension. So the fill on this, I'm going to actually change it to our drip blue color. So now I just brought in some the spotlight, and I'm going to bring it to the top, to the front. Bring it to the front, and then I can kind of play with this because it's bleeding in too much into the design. I just want it to barely kiss the color a little bit and just make it feel like there's a light shining into my UI. And this is just something you can kind of play with till you're like, that is money. So I'm gonna just kind of maybe land around there, and there you go. I've got a little dynamic lighting, got a clean UI. Boom.
Bada bing, bada boom.
I'm digging it.
That's awesome. No, this is great. It looks so good. The dimensionality brings it just that extra visual clarity, I would say. It just makes it look interesting. It makes it pop. I love it. The UI is super clean, extremely straightforward. This has been great.
And a cool thing about auto layout, this is auto layout and constraints in here. So I can set my little guy up here in the upper left. You can see my constraints upper left.
Oh,
set my constraints of my blur down here in the lower right. Okay, and then my header bar, I'm anchoring to the top, and I actually want it to anchor left and right. So if the window changes sizes, right, and then my center content area, I want to make that centered also, no matter what size the browser screen is. So now, if I were to want to play with, hey, what does this look like responsively, like responsive sizes? You want to see what this looks like at a bigger size? Oops, that's scaling. There you go. Nice. You can kind of treat this thing like it's a browser window, and everything kind of floats, and it all feels good.
That does feel good.
That's just a cool little constraint tip. So there we go. We can say these are complete. Boom.
And it's done.
We did it.
Good job. Wow. It didn't feel like 30 minutes or whatever.
I know, so it kind of goes quick.
Yeah, it goes so quick. No, that's so awesome. Yeah, and so we went from like completely like empty basically design to our final design. We did have a little bit of prep work there. And prep work does matter, but the end result, like the intentionality behind everything, I think matters a lot as well. And I mean, you brought a lot of like different elements and they're so clean as well. So yeah, no, this is great.
And those design elements, this is really kind of mirroring what a design system is good for. So when
Mm-hmm.
you're building design systems for UIs, this is why design systems are good. The design systems is your building blocks. And so when this is why when another designer can come into this file and they can already go ahead and pull like, oh, okay, Phil's already got icons down here and he's got some token logos, he's got textiles in place, he's got colors in. It just like it makes everything so much faster for the next person that comes behind you, or when you come back into your file and keep working. So
That's true.
make your
Do
textiles,
you
make your color
always
styles.
prep or do you experiment?
I do some experimentation first. I like to experiment, and then, but I pretty quickly start finding like these common threads that I am liking to see, and I'll start componentizing stuff. I'll start creating textiles. I'll start creating color styles. I'll start
Mm,
building that neutral palette off that base color, like we talked about earlier, like having that base color, putting that black on it, decreasing the opacity, finding a nice neutral black that I want to use that kind of has like undertones of my accent color. I'll start building that stuff pretty early. And then I slowly start doing that, and I start creating these pieces little by little as I go. It is a little bit difficult if you don't do any of that and you build the whole thing, and then you have to go back and build the whole design system after you've built some screens out, like in
mhm.
totality. It is time consuming. Still can do it. It totally happens. But for me, I've found that it's a little easier to build just little pieces at a time, and then you're not like surprised, later to be like, oh crap, I've got 2 days to like now I have to back build all my components
True. Mhm.
and reapply them to all my screens. So yeah, highly recommend building as you kind of set some things and lock it in. You like this, you like that, start building those components and putting the design system together.
I mean, yeah, I mean, and not only do you have to prepare for all of it, but also like all those years of experience come into play right there. It's like in that prep work as much as it is with the you know, actually designing this thing. Once you have that prep work. Yeah. No, this is great. Well, yeah. I mean, this is our first episode. Thanks everyone who's been who joined to us today, and like this has been really cool to hang out with all. We do have one thing we wanted to showcase. Actually, Phil, if you can bring it up. So, what Phil has been designing, he's also been working
You mean
on
the
the web.
Web3 kit? Is
Yeah,
that sorry?
yeah.
Is that what
So
I'm
yeah,
looking at?
yes. So
Ooh.
what Phil has been working on, he's been designing a Web3 UI kit, and which is basically a UI library that you can go in and just basically get behind the scenes look at not only what it takes to make like a dApp or something, but also like if you want to get into like, okay, how did Phil build all these things in auto layout? Well, he built all these things in auto layout, and he has this thing, and it's free. There we go. So we can see. So he has all different kinds of UI components in there, modals and whatnot. And so if you want to like try to kind of create your own dApp, you can do so with this free UI kit. Link in the description below. The only thing you need is to sign up for our email, and you'll be able to download that. But yeah. Thank you,
Boom.
Phil, so much for joining us today for tea time. My tea
Dude,
cup is
so fun.
empty now. I don't know about
I
yours.
still have work to do.
All
I still have
right.
work to do, Dave.
Well, what you have work to do. I was gonna say like it would be cool to kind of like ask you some questions. I mean, this is your first time like live streaming in front of people, I would say, right?
It is.
Does it feel different? Since I know that you've played in front of 20,000 people with your band, how's this different? How does it feel different?
Dude, I think what's hard. So I did a stream. Well, I guess it was last week, 2 weeks ago, maybe. I did my first kind of like live stream, like our first
Right.
tea time, but I didn't design anything on the stream. So this is
Yes.
kind of the first time where
Designing.
I'm like live designing, which is a little bit nerve wracking because you don't,
Right.
there's so much stuff that's happening that's muscle memory, and so you're trying to like remember to explain that like, oh, I just hit like 3 shortcut keys and nobody could see it. But I think I really enjoy it. I forgot what the question was.
Well,
Can you tell me the
designing like
question again?
what is it like designing live in front of people, and what is it like playing live in front of 20,000 people? The music, and like how's it different? Does it feel different?
Oh yeah. Okay. So context. So that college band that I played with in college, we won this Battle of the Bands competition on a local radio station, and we got to open for Bon Jovi at this like big arena. So it's about 20,000 people. So yes, I was like 19, right? That was terrifying. I'm 36 now, so I'm a little bit. I've had a little, I guess, a little bit more like experience and exposure to things, but it's hard because you don't get audience feedback on a live stream. I mean, I guess you can get it in a chat, right?
Right.
You can get in a chat. You don't see facial expressions. You don't see if people are like engaged or if they're sleeping or like reading a book while you're trying to do a stream.
True.
Whereas like when you're doing like live, IRL stuff, right? In real life, I can look out and see like who's actually engaged and who like doesn't care. So I don't know what's better because it's kind of nice in a live stream. You don't know if people care or like if they're paying attention because you can't see them.
Right.
And I can't balance looking at a chat while I'm also designing. So it's got, they both have some unique things, but I dig the streaming, man. I've always wanted a YouTube channel. I tell my wife all the time, like, yo, a YouTube channel would be really fun.
This
I
is
don't have
your
excess
training
time to do
ground
YouTube.
now.
But dude, yeah, no, I'm getting to try it out. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I was gonna ask, like, how did music influence your career? Because, like, I mean, it's been a huge part of you, right? And your first job basically was basically kind of like related to music.
Yeah, I mean, music has like totally shaped. I mean, that was the whole reason I got into it in the first place, right? I was designing. So in high school, what I was working on, I was designing in Microsoft Front Page. So anybody who's old enough to remember Microsoft Front Page, this is like pre-Macromedia, pre-Adobe,
Right.
like pre when Adobe bought Macromedia, old stuff. And I was designing, so I was playing drums in high school. And so I was actually designing like a website for a snare drum company, in high school. So when I got to college, I thought I was actually done with drums. I thought I'm not gonna be able to play really anymore. Met up with this band and they're like, yo, we should do some t-shirts. We should do a website. I'm like, I can do that. So I would stay up all night. I got a copy of Photoshop, stay up all night long, watching tutorials on how to do stuff. And then I was building stuff for people's screen names is really what my first kind of thing was. I was building like these little, like my buddies would all have, we were doing Halo and, playing these different online games and they all had screen names. So I was building like fun screen name graphics for people. And that was kind of how I got started, playing around in Photoshop. And, but yeah, I mean, totally shaped. I mean, that's how I got my gig at my first job, like my first salary job, designing t-shirts, was because of the t-shirt designs I had done for my band. And I did a ton of t-shirt designs for bands working at that shop. It was a very music centered, like kind of all the content that we were working on was we were working with a lot of bands. So,
right.
Yeah, dude, it was huge. I mean, music definitely influenced how I even got into designing it all in the first place. So
I remember you shared this morning, you applied for Abercrombie and Fitch and they flew you out. How did that come to place? Right, like, how did that happen?
So I quit this job, right, that I've been working at a year and a half at this shop. And I started thinking like, okay, I still want to work in t-shirts. I really am enjoying this. T-shirts are kind of like recess, right? I get paid to like go have recess. And so my buddy was at SCAD, Savannah School of Art and Design. And I asked him, you got any connections, like someone I could reach out to? And he's like, well, we had this career fair. And I talked to a guy from Abercrombie. They're hiring. I was like, I mean, I don't own any Abercrombie shirts, but they got some kind of cool stuff, I guess. I mean, it's kind of whatever. So I started researching. I went to an Abercrombie store. I bought a few shirts there. I looked at their stuff up close because I've been exposed to screen printing at this point. I knew a lot about, the technicalities of screen printing and mesh counts on your screens and color separations. And so I was like, I'm really up to knowledge on a lot of that. So I was going to incorporate that into my like kind of applying for this job. So I called this guy from Abercrombie and he had me basically do an assignment. I had to put together an Abercrombie like bucket. I had to design like 5 shirts and a hoodie. Ooh. Right. And then I basically had to present that, to put together a presentation. I present that to them. And that was kind of how they were going to make a determination. Like, are you worth like us interviewing you? So I did this thing. They said, okay, you're through this phase. We're going to fly you up to New Albany or to Columbus, Ohio. We're going to go to New Albany. You're going to interview with all the creative directors at the time. Abercrombie had like 4 or 5 brands that only one of them I'd ever heard of, but they had a few brands that Abercrombie was just like the one that everybody knew. So I interviewed, I spent all day there. It was really surreal going to this place. They put me up in this this swanky hotel downtown Columbus. And like, we did like a restaurant, they sent out with two of the graphic designers. I ate lunch on campus at Abercrombie, talked with each, I had an interview with every creative director. So I'm feeling good about this. I'm like, this went really good. This was a lot of fun. Like, this place is cool. I could live in Columbus. This is a cool spot. And so I'm waiting, a week goes by or however much time, 2 weeks. And I get a call from the recruiter who I had talked to originally. And he's like, hey, man, it turns out that like we can't hire you because you don't have a degree. And so I was like, really? I was like, well, what in the world why didn't y'all ask me that at the beginning? Because y'all would have saved a lot of money and saved both of us some time. And so anyway, so that was actually motivation for me to like go back to school. And so I went back to school for 3 semesters until I just didn't sign back up for classes again and started the freelance thing and got legally established as a business and all that. So, so yeah, it was definitely like, that was a really funny experience. But it was really fun. It was a really good experience, like interviewing and being a part of that whole process for like a bigger company. So
yeah, no, that's crazy.
Yeah.
How long ago was that?
Oh my gosh, dude. That was
like
2008.
Ooh,
2008.
Okay. Yeah, that's 14 years ago.
Yeah, 2008. Summer of 2008 is when all that stuff happened.
That's so interesting because like the design degree, right? I remember being in Bible college. I studied design in Bible college, right? And so I remember being there and like everybody's like, wait, you don't have a degree? High school? I don't have a high school degree even. So like people are like, you don't have a high school degree? How are you gonna get a job? Nobody asked me though, right? Like, and it's interesting to hear like how like that was 2013, and just like in a few years have companies have been like moving away from like requiring a design degree because you can learn so many things online. You can get any kind of education online, right? Like you mostly learn everything by yourself. Like, how much did design degree has influenced your design?
I mean, so all the design school that I was at was all analog, so none of it was digital at all.
Right.
So it was all just kind of more fundamentals of drawing, sketching, color theory, all this kind of stuff, photography. And I'm horrible at drawing. Like, my sketch skills are not good. Like,
same.
I can't draw. we got an illustration department at Unfold that are like rock stars.
I'm so thankful
I can't
for
draw,
them.
man.
Yeah,
I can't draw. So being a part, like, I didn't really ever anticipate that I'd ever even get into the graphic design school. They only, at the time when I was there, they only accepted about 14 applicants a semester. It was really competitive, and it was 0 digital submissions. Like, everything was physical drawings, like in paintings and stuff. And I was like, I'm not going to be able to compete with these like phenomenal fine artists. So that was also part of the like, I don't know if I really want to try and stick around and beat out all these other people. I'm not really. So I was actually in graphic design class. None of it was computer oriented, but I was designing stuff. I would go home and I would design all my stuff on a computer, and then I would print it out and I would trace it, and do all my stuff like on analog, and then I would bring it back in, and that was like my finished piece. So I worked backwards. They were trying to teach everybody like, you should start with pen and paper, and I was like, I'd rather just start with it where I can do Control Z.
You just have to do everything the way you can, right? Like, if your workload just works, why not? Like, requiring somebody to do something like that, that's nuts. But I guess it really depends on the workload of the company too.
Yeah, I mean, I hit Command Z too much, dude. I need an undo button,
dude.
If I'm drawing, like, I can't. It takes too long. It's too long to erase.
I'm so bad with I'm so efficient with shortcuts that one time I just learned about Command Q to quit everything, and I was quitting things just mid work. I was just like hitting that.
Yeah.
I had to like make a sticker for myself to like remember to not hit the Q.
Don't hit it. I was hoping I wouldn't do that during the stream, actually, by accident. It's like doing all the hotkeys, like accidentally hit Command Q.
Right. No, that happens so much. Yeah.
Can happen.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Well, that's really cool. Very interesting story you got. Like, it's really interesting to hear how your journey has come from all the way from music to here today at Unfold, and I'm excited to see where you're gonna go as well in your journey. I mean, what you've shown today has been like world-class designing skills, I would say. Like the efficiency right there has been really good. So thank you so much for showing us Figma and designing live with us and discussing live. So thanks so much for joining us. And thanks everyone who joined today for our live stream. Comment below if you want to see something else on the stream, if you have any ideas or suggestions, and any other comments. So thanks so much and have a wonderful day.